I'm illiterate. I can't read, like, at all. And at a young age, this wasn't a problem because people would just read to me. And that's how I would get stories and books read. People would read them to me. The only problem is, as an adult, people tend not to want to read to you. I like to just curl up in bed all snug as a bug and have someone read to me, but it's just not going to happen. Not as a full-blown adult. No one's going to do that for me. So this has really resulted in me just missing so many great stories and books out there that I would love to have read to me, but I can't get to them because I can't read. I'm illiterate. But I found a simple solution around this problem. One way that I can have any book I want read to me by any narrator out there in the world. We're talking about audiobooks and why they're the greatest thing ever invented. We have a colossal fuck ton of books, novels, articles, and other word-filled objects that have just been walled off from me, all because I have never learned how to read. But with audiobooks, it's just not a problem anymore. I can just flip on an audiobook, boom, and I can just have a book read to me. I never have to read again, or even learn. Book publishers will hire literally like famous people or any person to just read a book for me. And then I can go and listen to this book whenever I want to. It's probably the best thing that humans have literally ever invented. I can't think of anything else that humans have made that would even stack up to audiobooks. It's created a world of so many different possibilities for me. I will actively go and seek anyone's book recommendations, and I will add it to my list of books that I want to read. There's this overwhelming feeling that there's just this unending pile of books that are just waiting for me that I've missed out on, that now I can finally go through and just devour and dive right into. There is one downside to audiobooks compared to normal books, and that is the price of audiobooks. There is a substantial increase in price when it comes to audiobooks, and that's because I think all of the production that goes behind an audiobook, but also there's a shit ton of work that goes behind books as well. So I don't know the difference. Maybe it's because they have to hire an actor or someone to read it and then someone to go through and edit it. I just don't know. I think that is one of the downsides to audiobooks, is that there's a higher paywall to the book. To fully enjoy the audiobook, you just have to pay more, which is kind of scummy in a way. I think it's a bit wrong, in fact. Now, I'm not an economist. Economist. Now, I'm not an economist, but that's a bit more than what some would want to pay to have a book read to them. They don't want to pay the premium fine, the premium tax, to have someone read to you. But what if I told you there's a secret that many people didn't know about? Something that the government doesn't want you to know about. A little thing called libraries. With the tax money you pay to the government, you get access to this thing called a library. And in this library, they hold vast amounts of information stored in books. But this isn't a video about books, this is a video about audiobooks. Here's the catch. Libraries also have audiobooks. But Josh, audiobooks are audio. How do libraries store audio? Now, some of the younger people in the audience are used to iPhones, and iPods. But people my age, and probably a little younger, know about these things called DVDs, cassettes, and other audio storing forms. I feel like we're getting off topic. The point is, libraries will store and collect audiobooks for the masses, for people who can't afford or don't want to pay for an audiobook. All this to say is, yes, audiobooks are a bit more expensive than ebooks or physical books, but I think is a great solution for illiterates like me. Now that I've gone over audiobooks and why I think they're the greatest invention ever, while also going over some cons, I think I want to talk about some of my favorite audiobooks that I've listened to. And maybe I could interest you into giving them a listen as well, or even a read, if you can read. Now for a quick injection of some of my favorite audiobooks that I've listened to. But before we get into that, we have to talk about this little guy right here. This right here is John Green. He is known for different books. You might have seen him on Crash Course. You've probably seen him in like any class where the teacher doesn't feel like teaching for the day. He's also known for not being the science one. He is the book one, the writer. His brother Hank Green, he writes some books, but he's mostly known for science and talking about different like sciencey shit. This one, John Green, is books. Now here's a small selection of some of the books that he's written. I've listened to quite a bit of them. I'm currently reading one, so let's just jump into them. First, we have Fault in Our Stars. Great book. I really loved it. Probably the first one I listened to for John Green. It's really what got me into his books. Made me cry at the end. It's very, very good. I recommend it. I'm currently reading this one. So far, it's been pretty interesting. It's one of his first books. It's Looking for Alaska. Really good book. Paper Towns is probably my favorite of his books. I really like the message that he's putting through in the book and what he's trying to say in it. It's so meaningful and it really speaks to me, this book. And so I would recommend this one the most. And then we have Turtles All the Way Down. This is a personal struggle that John Green has dealt with. It's a very interesting read. Another book I would recommend. And finally, we have Anthropocene Reviewed. I don't know if I got that right. I'm guessing that's how you say that word. But it's basically just a bunch of different topics that John Green has written about. It shares the same name as a podcast he once did, and he decided to throw all that together, make some revisions, and then make a book out of it. And what I really like about this audiobook is it's actually like voiced by John Green himself. I haven't gotten into it yet. It's on my list of things to listen to. I'm very excited about this one. Now we're going to talk about Dune and why you should read them. Dune has a bunch of shit that I really like. It's got lots of sand. It's got a guy named Paul who's the main character. And it's got politics, religion, and a word I'm pretty sure I can't say on YouTube, but it rhymes with bearerism. And it's got big ass space worms. A fun side note about Dune is I started listening to it because I wanted to watch the movie, and I felt like, hey, I have a lot of free time. I might as well listen to the books before the movie's out. Then I finished the book, the movies came out, and I have yet to watch the movie. But I have started the sequel and listened to the full sequel, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Side tangent over. Speaking of space books, I want to mention two more. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This book's pretty short, but that's not bad. It's very enjoyable with the time you have with it. It's a fun little book that gives you a good haha. It's a silly book that doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's serious enough. And finally, the universe and world building in this book almost feels like it's like just there to be there. It doesn't really feel like it has a purpose sometimes, and that's okay. This book gets into tangents that doesn't seem like it's going to be relevant, and then later on in the book it's like, oh, that's what that was about. The Martian is a book. Book is like movie. If you like the movie, probably like the book. It takes place on Mars in space and also dirt planet Earth. Downside, it is read by Will Wheaton, and that's probably the worst part of the book, but good book, would recommend. And finally, this is going to be a couple of lightning round books that I've listened to that I really enjoyed and would recommend anyone listen to or read. First, we're going to talk about Life of Pi. This book is great. I love this book so much. It talks about religion, faith, God, and it also has a tiger. Would recommend. It's definitely like my top 10 books for sure. We have My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This book is a lot sadder than I thought it would be. It's basically about a woman who decides, hey, for one whole year, I'm not going to do anything but sleep and do nothing. And it's depressing, but I would recommend it. It's definitely an interesting read. Nothing to See Here is wacky. One of my friends recommended it to me a while back, and I was like, you know what? I'll listen to it. It's basically about kids that catch on fire, and these kids are related to a politician that desperately doesn't want anyone to know about these kids catching on fire. It's weird. It's wacky. It's fun. give it a shot. Try listening to it or reading it. It's definitely an interesting read. We have Holes, a book from my childhood that I decided to give it another listen to. Very, very much enjoyed. It's about bad luck, good luck, and a bunch of holes. And finally, let's finish this off with The Things They Carried, a book about the Vietnam War and different experiences throughout it. I think it was an anthology. It's been a while. I might have to go back to it. It's a very interesting set of stories about soldiers who experienced life in Vietnam. Sad, depressing, and sometimes horrifying, just like war. One thing that is nice about this audiobook is it's narrated by Bryan Cranston, and he does a phenomenal job at reading this book. I would definitely say pick it up if you want to listen to war-type books. I don't know. But yeah, that's some of the books I've listened to. I recommend listening or reading to anything I've talked about here. Thank you. Now back to The Dweeb from several months ago. Growing up, I've always struggled with reading, whether it be finding the time or just sitting down and focusing to read. And it's not that I didn't want to read, it just was always a chore to read. There was always multiple books that I've always wanted to read, but just couldn't. And those books I'll probably give a second try now that I fully adapted to using audiobooks. Listening to audiobooks has really given me just this newfound respect for books in general that I just didn't have before. Whenever talking about books, I'd be like, oh, I just don't like that. I just can't stand reading. Books are dumb. But now I have a genuine newfound respect for it. I genuinely have a new perspective. Audiobooks have allowed me to fully comprehend the story presented to me without me struggling to understand it while going through the entire book. So if you are like me and have always hated reading or just dreaded the thought of reading, I would honestly suggest looking into audiobooks. Who knows, maybe you might find a book that you genuinely love that you otherwise wouldn't even have bothered to read. Because I know there's so many books that I now love that I would have never even attempted to read. Yeah, that's it. That's the video. Thanks for watching. Get out of here, you little freak. Go on, get.